Redesigns have taken the Mario series by storm in the last year or so. I think most of the discourse around it started when Princess Peach's look was altered on the cover art of Princess Peach Showtime to seemingly resemble her movie look more, despite her in-game look being largely unchanged. But it has really gone into overdrive with the review of Mario Kart World. Most main characters have received a new look inspired by Mario Bros. Wonder, but of course it was Donkey Kong and his new Bonanza look that really got people talking. Whether you like it or not, redesigns are inevitable when you're around for as long as the Mario cast has, and so it shouldn't come as a surprise that all these recent new looks are merely a new chapter in their design history, rather than a completely new, unprecedented thing. You can essentially divide the designs of the Mario cast in 6 different eras, with us recently having entered a new one. Seems like the perfect moment to look back at the past 5, right? And the first one is a very brief one. This is essentially the time before Super Mario Bros. Comes out and properly kickstarts the Mario franchise. But as you probably know, several characters already existed at this time. Mario and Donkey Kong hail from the original Donkey Kong on arcade, where they had way more realistic proportions in official artwork, nowhere near what they would end up looking like not long after. Mario's mustache was longer and his body was taller, although this was changed with the release of Mario Bros. This game also introduced Luigi, who similarly looks nothing like what we know him to be today, even the coloring isn't correct yet. While Pauline technically also hails from this era, she was promptly discarded and went unused for literal decades, before then returning with a design which only vaguely resembles the lady from the original Donkey Kong. If anything, Lady inspired the design of Peach more than she did Pauline. And that would fully come to fruition in 1985, the release year of Super Mario Bros. While we have technically already had an era prior to this, it's of course this game that really sets the standard for what the Mushroom Kingdom and its inhabitants would come to look like. Mario's coloration is finalized, his proportions are fairly similar to what they still are now, and while not every piece of art from this game feels like it could be made today, there are also several that wouldn't look too out of place. Since Donkey Kong of course doesn't appear in this title and Luigi doesn't have official artwork for it, we continue right on with what at the time were the newcomers. Peach's look here would serve as the basis for her design for the next decade or so, with a very straight dress and a general look that I would compare to a doll almost. Many of her artwork's poses are very stiff and straight. Toad, still called Mushroom Retainer at the time, is introduced with a look that has never really received a major overhaul, although his proportions are smaller and more childlike than they would eventually become. But it's nothing compared to Bowser. At this time, Bowser is actually portrayed in wildly inconsistent manners. There is this blue design, which is nothing like he would end up becoming, as well as this green one, which is definitely closer to the Bowser we know, but the coloration is still different, notably lacking his red hair and white spikes. When looking at the enemies, I actually think it's impressive how little these have changed over the years. Only Spinies and Piranha Plants have had their colors changed. The rest have more so just moved along with the times and the general art style. Because yeah, the 2D cartoon-like look that the official artwork had at the time didn't last, as we'll soon see. But before that, we enter what is sort of a half era, being the latter half of the 80s, the years of Mario Bros. 2, 3 and World. These years wouldn't change the art style whatsoever, only refined it a bit more to become the 2D style that is still occasionally seen today. But why I still would consider it a half era of sorts is because several important redesigns were made during these years, as well as new characters introduced like Daisy, Wario and Yoshi. For example, the first time that Bowser has what you could consider his current coloration is in the Lost Levels, which is effectively just Mario 2 in Japan. Artwork for the Western Mario 2 changes the look of Luigi, although it is still quite inconsistent. On one hand, you have this artwork, which doesn't even have the colors of his outfit correct, but then there's also this piece, which, low quality aside, could have been released yesterday. Yoshi is introduced with a design that is much more curved, for lack of a better word, than what he would eventually become. Daisy is basically a recolored Peach for the time being, and Wario definitely hadn't had his design nicely streamlined yet, looking a little disheveled. But that would all change around the mid-90s. The release of the Nintendo 64 was in some ways massive for the look and feel of the Mario franchise, yet in some way also quite insignificant. It cannot be denied what the effect of Super Mario 64 and the console in general was on the series. It changed the de facto look of the characters from 2D to 3D, which has stuck ever since, but at the same time, it is surprisingly low on actual redesigns. Many of the characters were quite faithfully brought from 2D to 3D. The sole exception really is Yoshi, who traded in his curved spine for a straight one, making him less of an animal buddy and more of an actual cast member. But speaking of animal buddies, it was actually Donkey Kong who received by far the biggest makeover around this time, a few years before the Nintendo 64 released with Donkey Kong Country. Now, technically this isn't a redesign, as this Donkey Kong isn't the same Donkey Kong as the one from arcades, but Nintendo doesn't seem to care all that much, and it was around this time that DK was brought back in full swing, even being re-added to the Mario cast. Waluigi was also created around this time with a look that really hasn't changed all that much since, and Birdo too became a more often seen face. But yeah, despite this being a crucial moment for the Mario franchise as a whole, changing from 2D to 3D, you could actually make the argument this is another half era, because in terms of actual redesigns, it's surprisingly barren. Which is where the crucial year of 2002 comes in. Purely from a design perspective, this is the year that I would consider the start of the modern Mario era. The designs introduced here have more or less been kept for multiple decades, only receiving slight changes here and there. The proper 3D Mario game accompanying these changes is of course Mario Sunshine, which gives all characters more muted, slightly less cartoony tones and textures. Mario's proportions are slightly changed. Peach gets a new dress design, which originally is still a little summer themed, but would serve as the inspiration for her attire for the next couple decades. Yoshi becomes a much more vibrant green, and especially Bowser's design is what you could consider finalized, finally. While Sunshine still kinda tiptoed around these designs, it's the game released later that year that really solidified the look of the cast. Mario Party 4. This is where Peach, her dress, becomes finalized, we see Mario with long sleeves finally, and all other characters are altered to match the new style, which means major overhauls for Luigi, further smoothlining his look from Luigi's Mansion, and especially Daisy, who is finally her own character rather than a clone of Peach. Wario, Waluigi, Birdo and Donkey Kong also get their designs smoothed out, for lack of a better word, to the point they have literally kept this design all the way until very recently. And what's also interesting is that this game solidifies that the look Boo's had in Luigi's Mansion is the one they'll keep going forward, rather than Mario Sunshine, despite that obviously being the big 3D Mario game. From this point on, for the longest time, this is what all these characters look like, and suddenly anything that deviates from it looks a little odd. Just take Super Smash Bros. Melee, which actually precedes Sunshine and thus these redesigns. Mario, Luigi, Bowser, Peach, they all look completely different from all other games on the GameCube here, since they're all still based on their Nintendo 64 looks. And from here on out, you could even say that these looks are kept from Sunshine all the way until Super Mario Bros. Wonder and the Mario movie. Of course, there are little stylistic adventures here and there, like the entire Mario and Luigi series for example, but none would stick beyond a few games or make its way across all forms of Mario content. And yet, there is still an era we must discuss here, and that begins with New Super Mario Bros. Because while the main cast and characters have essentially gone unchanged from the early GameCube days onward, this game specifically marked a huge change in the portrayal of the rest of the Mushroom Kingdom. Items, enemies, settings, landmarks, many of them weren't changed to match until this game, to the point countless renders from this game still get used today, simply because it's still completely accurate. I mean, just look at the design of the Super Mushroom, probably the most iconic item of the entire series. In Super Mario 64 DS it looked like this. And then 1 year later, it was this. It feels like these images are from different decades, yet they're only a year and a few months apart. But that's how important and lasting the changes made in New Super Mario Bros. Were. It elevated the entire Mario world to the level the cast had been on since the GameCube, and as such, marks an incredibly important moment in the design philosophy of the Mario franchise. To the point, I would go as far as to say this is the most important moment. There is a look to the Mario franchise before and after New Super Mario Bros., and they are essentially two completely different beasts. And now, nearly 20 years later, we're beginning to see the Mario franchise change again. Super Mario Bros. Wonder is the first mainline Mario game with a drastically different look to it, actually reversing somewhat to what the characters used to look like in the old days, but bringing it to a modern quality. Something similar can be seen in the movie, and the development team behind Donkey Kong Bonanza outright said that they created the new DK design by going back to Miyamoto's old artwork, rather than Rare's design and updating it. How exactly this will shape the future look of the Mario series and how long it will last for is obviously very hard to say. Right now, it feels like Nintendo was very happy with it, and I do think the more cartoony art style does fit the position Mario as a series currently has, with a huge focus on fun and creativity. But who knows? Maybe in a few years we come to find out this new style wasn't built to last another 20 years, but was rather more meant to be an era of a few years. We simply don't know. But there's one thing I can guarantee you. No matter if you love the new designs or hate them, they will be changed. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but we will see Mario, Luigi, Peach and Bowser with different looks somewhere along the way. That's for certain. What do you think of Mario's redesign history? Did you have a favorite era or one you really disliked? And what do you think of the new direction? Share it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like and subscribe to the channel to stay updated on all my future Mario content coming up. For now, thanks for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.